Thank you for taking a few minutes to learn about Gravity software. Our technology stack is based upon a Microsoft managed platform. So the Microsoft Power Platform has over 20 million users of it, and it runs in the Microsoft data centers around the world. We get to live on top of that platform and use all the features of that platform. So the platform is managed by Microsoft for security, for disaster recovery, for reliability. They, protect the data from ransomware and intrusions and so on. We have a very strong, very secure platform that is managed by Microsoft, and it allows us at Gravity to focus on our application, and it allows our users to be comfortable that they get a professional organization in Microsoft managing, again, the security and disaster recovery and so on. We also get to use the tools that are in this platform. And one of those tools is Power BI. It's a visualization tool, a dashboarding tool. There is no such thing as one size dashboard fits everybody. And that's what a lot of applications try to deliver is, oh, we have pretty dashboards, but they're generic. With Power BI, you can build dashboards easily that are important to you with your information in the context that you want to see it. Another one of those tools is Power Automate. It's Microsoft's cloud workflow tool. It allows us to perform all kinds of automations above and beyond what Gravity does standard out of the box. So if there's a unique process, we can use Power Automate to do that. But it also allows us to do things like approvals. And because of the way this workflow engine is configured, we can do approvals on any transaction. So we have a bill coming into Gravity, and we want to approve that bill. We want approvals before payments are made. We want approvals before a journal entry is posted of a certain size. Any transaction, any record in Gravity can have an approval process, and they can be very simple or very complex. Because it's an engine, we're not limited to just two levels of approvals, for example, or certain confined kind of ways of doing an approval. And we'll look at that a little bit more in a moment when we look at the product. So let's look now at the functionality of Gravity itself. Everything here in white is part of our core product that we deliver. Of course, the full accounts payable stack, from entering bills to making payments, managing vendors, so on. The accounts receivable stack, managing customers from sales order to invoicing to cash receipts. Our bank book is part of our financial stack of working with banks, credit cards, bringing that data in, being able to do electronic reconciliations, being able to take credit cards and make transactions directly from them. Use a service embedded called Plaid that allows us to talk to about 12,000 financial institutions in North America and bring that data in electronically. Budgeting, of course, general ledger. Consolidations, which isn't shown on here, but is part of our general ledger capabilities. We have an investment management tool. The investment management subledger is used to track investments in outside organizations. We have a lot of private equity firms using Gravity, and when we would meet them, they'd say, well, we have all these spreadsheets of all of our investments, not connected, not secure, so on. So with our investment subledger, they can actually keep all that information in Gravity, report it to the general ledger automatically, incorporate it into our accounts payable for making payments, fully integrated. Multi-currency, we have the ability to have a three-tier currency system, which I'll describe more in a moment. We also have a currency reporting service built in, so we can automatically get daily FX rates. And of course, one of the core tenets is our multi-entity capabilities, the ability to have multiple companies sharing this platform. Operational pieces such as a bill of material, inventory, so on. For organizations that need that because they're more physical product related, for example, we have capabilities to manage that. Insights, along with dashboarding with Power BI, our strong reporting capabilities. We'll also see, again, that Power BI business intelligence, which I'll show you when we look at the product. A lot of accounting systems will keep each company as an island independently, which means if you have 10 companies, you have 10 charts of accounts. You may have the same vendor in there 10 times. And so that becomes very difficult, especially as you start to scale larger and larger, to say, okay, now I'm going to have 20 companies with 20 charts of accounts. So at Gravity, we've done it quite a bit different. First off, we have all of our companies in a single database. There's still security by company. I can easily say that an individual can only see one company or two companies, but not know that the other companies exist. In my architecture, we start with having our master files like customer lists, vendor lists, charts of accounts, all centralized and shared with the companies. So what does that mean? First off, I can easily develop a chart of accounts, and all 20 companies will have that chart of accounts immediately. Where some of the power comes into Gravity is when we start talking about things like intercompany activities. One of the most common things that happens is we get a bill for, let's say, at our holding company, and I want to be able to allocate that cost to more than one company. In Gravity, you can allocate that bill to multiple companies. So one company's going to pay the bill, that may be our holding company, but I want to be able to put in 3, 4, 5, 6 line items, each with a portion of the expense to a different company or a different entity, as we call it. So this makes it really nice and easy for you to be able to do one activity, one transaction. What will happen is when that transaction is posted, each company will get their share of the expense as you've delineated on the line items, and the due tos and due froms between the companies are all balanced by us. So you don't have to worry about having to open up each company separately, remembering which portion is theirs, transposing or forgetting to put one piece of it in. At the end of the month, your transactions, your intercompany activity should be balanced because we're doing the work and we're making sure it's balanced. Same thing with journal entries. Quite often we see where they'll have a common paymaster paying payroll on behalf of multiple companies. For us, for Gravity, it's as simple as bringing in and importing one payroll transaction. That one payroll transaction can list all the companies and their share of benefits and so on. And with that, I will make one transaction in Gravity, one import, one review, push one button. All the companies are up to date with their share of the payroll expense, and the due to and due froms are also balanced again. So again, the intercompany activity is greatly simplified in Gravity, so you don't have to do all the extra work of opening each company, making transactions, so on. We also have the ability here to do what I would call like a management fee type invoice between companies. So typically, if we want to have one company who has a lot of the overhead, but we're not going to break it out, on each bill, but we want to charge once a month a management fee, company A can create an invoice to company B, and when that invoice is created and posted in company A, we will create the AP automatically for you. So we'll create the second half of that transaction. We'll convert the revenue items like management fee income to expense items like salaries or rent or so on the AP side, simplifying the process of being able to do a management fee or intercompany type of bill. Now, there's a lot of additional features in here when we start talking about Gravity's multi-company capabilities, but these are just some of the highlights. Finally, I want to just point out, besides consolidating financial reports, we also can consolidate operational reports. And what that means is I'm doing AP at multiple companies. I want to see how much the organization owes all of the vendors at once. In a lot of systems, you'd have to run the AP aging for each company separately, merge them in Excel, a lot of work there to see an overall picture. With Gravity, you can say, show me all the AP aging for all the companies on one report, push a button, and you have it. So let's jump in and take a look at Gravity. Gravity is a web-based application, which means there's nothing to install. You can run it in a browser with a good internet connection on a Windows machine, on an Apple machine. From that standpoint, it makes it very easy to be able to work remotely. Again, other than your security and the internet connection, you're basically open to a platform you want to use. Our menu on the left here is meant to be simple, not complex. When you look at some of the enterprise systems, you'll see sometimes 20, 30, 40 items on a menu that you may never use many of those items. You have to learn which ones not to use. We didn't want to build an application like that. We want to build an application that became rather intuitive. And you'll see down here the ability to switch between areas. So if I'm on the expense area, I have the option of using purchase orders and receiving those purchase orders, putting in bills, making payments, managing vendors. Intuitive, easy to learn, not very complex. We did not want to have a system that was hard to learn, took a long time to basically master. Changing companies, you'll see a list over here of companies that I have access to. Now, there could be more companies out there that I don't have access, so they're not in my list. Pick a company. All we're doing is changing a pointer in the database. We're not closing a company, opening a company. We're just pointing at a company, so you'll see my numbers here have changed because I'm referencing Constellation where before I was referencing Enterprise. Very easy and very fast to change companies. Again, not logging out, logging in, so on. You'll also see on my home dashboard, so this is one of our core dashboards that we ship with, you'll see access to some reports and to some of the screens that are also available on the menu. So on this dashboard, I'm showing all my cash balances for all my companies at once. I don't have to open a company, put a number in Excel. I can see immediately where my money is. If I need to move money between companies, I know where it's at, for example. Now I'm showing my European company in US dollars because I've chosen the consolidation currency of US dollars, so I can easily see that at any time in the consolidation currency as well as in the home currency if I were to go into that company. I want to take you to how we actually display data in Gravity. We display it in a grid or spreadsheet-like view. So columns going across, rows. We can again sort or filter by any column. So maybe I want to see a certain date range for a certain account. I can do that quickly. I can say, I want to create my own personal view here because there's things that I want to add to this, but other things that I don't need. So I'm going to remove a dimension that we're not using, and I'll start adding some columns. Maybe I want to add who created these transactions because I'm doing a little audit here and I want to know who's created these. So you'll see here where I can do that. Now I've added the Gravity admin as the created by. Anything in here, these are like typical browser links. You can click on it, open up the transaction itself. Goal here is to create views that are unique to you. I may have a view of expenses. I may have a certain type of vendor that I want to isolate, like all my office vendors, all my benefit vendors. So I want to create a view around their bills, their payments. I can do that easily. They'll be listed here in my views versus the standard out-of-the-box views. So we have several ways of entering vouchers. You'll see these top three here. I'm going to take you to the first one, which is called our AP automation. This is where we get the ability to enter bills right from a PDF. So what happens is I can upload from my desktop. So if I'm the AP person and I get like 100 emails today with bills on them, I can upload 100 PDFs. Or easier, I can give my suppliers an email address, ap@company. And that will automatically forward to our engine that will show up then here. What I've done is I highlighted the first one. Let's just move some things so we have a little bit more room here to work so we can see a little bit more. And I can make this bigger or smaller, but basically what the system does, and we use an AI engine from Microsoft that's geared specifically for PDFs. It read this document and it created this data for me. It's giving me, for example, a warning because I may already have this document in Gravity. So it's telling me, just be careful, this could be a duplicate. Since it's reading a PDF, it's not always 100%. So we're getting what's called a confidence level. I'm 98% confident I got this document number. I'm 98% confident I got the invoice. Now, the apply date, as I said, you could change this to be November if you wanted to be in November financials versus the August date that's on here. So you'll see that here. You'll see here where we can highlight different fields and you'll see some controls. We have situations where maybe there's an invoice number here, there's a order number here, there's another number, and the system reads and gets the wrong number in the wrong place. Maybe this really isn't the invoice number. I could put my cursor, I could delete this, put my cursor in here, go like this, and the pencil will insert whatever I'm looking at into that field. So I don't have to remember to copy it or type it in, or so just, again, getting it in easier. We have line items. Line items would be coming from what you read here. And so I can easily go out and have all my detail here. First off, we have a machine learning algorithm that remembers how you use companies before, how you use account numbers in the past, and even how you use dimensions over here if we're using dimensions. So for example, it knew that last time I had an item from this vendor and there was a service call on it, I put it to account 1130. So that way, it remembers that. Can it change that? Absolutely. But the goal here is not having to change it and not having to remember every time. Companies, we can change companies here. I want to go out and say, I want to be able to put this line item in Constellation, not in Enterprise. So I can go out here, I can type in Constellation, and now this is going to come into Constellation instead of Enterprise. Back to my multi-company capabilities. I'm going to have this line item as an expense in Constellation. The due tos and due froms are all going to be balanced between Constellation and, in this case, Enterprise that's going to have this bill in its AP system. What we find with our AP automation is we get bills in much faster. So we're basically looking at the PDF bill. I hit create voucher, go to the next one. Review it, create voucher, go to the next one. So I'm getting them in faster and I'm getting more accuracy because I got all the line item details that were here off of this. You'll start to see approvals throughout Gravity. So here's an approval grid. And what it's doing is documenting the fact that right now we have an approval pending with this person. Now, based upon the dollar value, based upon the type of purchase, so on, it may need 2 or 3 approvals. Based upon the type of vendor, it may be routed to different people. Basically, IT purchases by the CTO get approved, so on. But how do the approvals actually get made? The easiest way to do an approval in Gravity is to do an approval in an email message. So here I am in my email system, and you'll see I'm just opening my email. I get an approval document. And you'll see the details that we saw before. You'll see whatever information. So this whole area here is completely configurable. Do we need to tell them who created it? Do we need to tell them which company? We can or can't. Do I want them to be able to do the approval right here? I mean, this is important because number one, they don't have to learn a new system. Number two, they're not coming into the accounting system and starting to look around, even though they're security and they can't push buttons, they're going to see things in there that they start, what does this do, and so on. And there's no training. They basically just open their email, review this. Oh, the PDF, by the way, is here too, so they can get a copy of what the vendor sent if you want them to, and say, yep, I like this, this is the right layout, I'm going to approve it, and it will then tell Power Automate that it's been approved, and then Power Automate will go to the next step, which means maybe a second approval, or just posting the transaction automatically for me so nobody has to manually do that. But the goal here is to make it easier and simpler to do approvals without having to, train your staff and so on. Finally, we would go and we would actually build a batch of payments. And as we build a batch of payments, we have different payment mechanisms. So we do still print checks, paper checks. I can do a ACH electronic payment. I can do an ACH to file. This is where a lot of our users like to use their bank's bill pay service because it's free and they may have a relationship with their bank that makes it easier. Usually with accounting systems, you have to do work twice. You have to go to your bank and say, pay 50 vendors, then they come into your accounting system and you have to mark them all as paid. With Gravity, you can basically mark them all as paid in Gravity and create a specific file. Then you go to your bank and you just upload and say, pay this file, which has 50 vendors in it and all the details, the dates, the amounts, and so on. So this just makes it really simpler to work in that environment, if that makes sense for you. So we do have standard financial statements where you can go out there and I just want to run a detailed balance sheet or I want to run a P&L. But you can create your own reports. You can go out here and say, I want to create a consolidated P&L my way. And what does that mean? Well, we'll run this one and take a look. So your way means you define the columns, companies, for example. You define the rows, how I want it broken out. So you'll see I have 4 companies here that I'm putting into this financial report. And in this case, I'm also only showing 75% of my joint venture because this is basically, I don't own 100% of that company. And even though we do 100% of the accounting, I only want to show my share in this report. So this makes it really nice and easy. I could have 50 columns on here. I'm showing companies, but each column is independent. It could be a date based, it could be company based, it could be dimension based. I can drill back, of course. I click on a number, and then I start clicking back till I go to the source documents. I also have the ability here to break it out and show my dimensions going up and down. So it's just an option when you're setting up the report. So we control the columns and we control the rows. Let's look at another version of this. Let's look at a budget to actual report because of course Gravity has budgeting capability. We also let you have multiple budgets for the same period. So in this case, kind of same layout, but now I'm showing our actuals for one company, enterprise, my original budget, variance, revised budget, variance. On one page, I'm showing a lot of information for one company. Again, it makes it really nice and easy because I can show another company over here with the same information. You decide because the columns and the rows are up to you. So the goal here again is to make this something that is unique in that when you have more than one organization or company that you're managing, and you have all the intercompany activities that are coming through and you have to do those manually, you want to be able to do more advanced reporting across companies or within companies. Gravity has all the capabilities to do that. And again, we've tried to keep it in what we call an easy to use application that is a lot simpler than the big enterprise applications, a lot less expensive to implement and license. Hopefully, you got a chance to see some of the great features in Gravity. Our sales team would love to talk to you if you have any more questions. Thank you for taking some time to look at Gravity.